Karen.
Brianna, hello.
Oh, how you doing?
I am very good. It's a nice, cool morning in Phoenix today.
It is gorgeous. It is
I
gorgeous.
love it.
And if you don't know yet, I've already introduced her, but Karen Walch is our guest today, and I'm so excited. I'll read you a little bit about her. Karen Walch is a partner of Clairvoyant Leadership and emeritus faculty at the Thunderbird School of Global Management. She is an expert in global negotiations, leadership, and social interactions. And I feel so grateful that you're here today. Thank you so much for doing this interview, for all the people on LinkedIn, that your book is like literally, it's dog-eared because I've had so many pages where I've folded down things I've underlined, like this whole thing here. And she wrote this book, Quantum Negotiation, The Art of Getting What You Need. And for me, this book has been like quite the mindful journey. I mean, it's quantum negotiation, and I'll have Karen explain it to you. I've always loved quantum physics. I love all the workings around that. But quantum negotiation took it a step further for me, which I really, really appreciated. So without further ado, I give you Karen. And if you want to just say a little introduction, please do.
Welcome, everybody. It's so great to meet Brianna's audience. And you certainly have someone who loves and cares about you very much. So I hope you enjoy our conversation today, and we'd both like to hear from you after this broadcast.
Exactly. And we're going to be talking about quantum negotiation and from Karen's book, what it is, how do you establish a quantum negotiation in your life as a practice, in business, and in your personal life, because quantum negotiation, there's no separation. So right. I'm going to ask you, my first question is, I looked up quantum, and what it means is a discrete quantity of energy proportional in magnitude to the frequency of the radiation it represents. Now that sounds really deep, but your book, you make it so simple. So I'm going to ask you, how do you define quantum and quantum negotiation?
So we have borrowed from quantum physics, which is really the science around interconnectivity. And underneath all of what we see as matter, underneath that are the subatomic material called quanta, or energy. Everything, all of our reality is made up of this invisible quanta of energy. And if any of you remember your physics from the past, Newtonian physics told us that everything was separate and we could see everything in a visible way. And that way our reality was of separation. However, with all the advances now in this physics, we're seeing that things are very connected. So for example, my feelings can be connected, and you can feel my feelings, Brianna, when I'm feeling really agitated or I'm feeling very calm. This kind of level of internet connectivity is something that we're also finding in neuroscience. So it's very clear now that the sciences are telling us that there's a real connection between what's metaphysical or unseen with the physical that is seen. And that also includes within our human dimensions. We have physical, emotional, and spiritual things that impact our behavior. So if I can't regulate my emotions and I'm not willing to cooperate with you, you can feel that, and that's going to impact my negotiations. So as a quantum negotiator, for example, we prepare our nervous system rather than going in trying to defend, trying to work hard, and to make you take my proposal. So it's a different way of looking at where the connectivity is before we begin thinking we are separate and I have to convince you of something.
Exactly. And I loved that in the book. You give many definitive examples that are real life. Yeah. I love that. So what qualities does mindfulness share with quantum negotiation?
Just like the work you do, it's about paying attention. It's
Mm.
really understanding the reality that we perceive is really made up of a lot of small particles and forces that are generally unseen. And on a day-to-day basis, may not be aware of it like you do in your practices.
Mhm.
So what we find is that when you become a quantum negotiator, you're alert to the ways that we can do self-care, self-awareness, which provides more vibrant energy for ourselves, which also provides more energy for our partnerships, and what we call the collective nervous system, even in organizations and in teams.
Which is key, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
you have to do it individually, but for like bigger negotiations, when you at work, when you're in a family situation, you need to know those vital skills.
Right.
Why is quantum negotiation a useful skill?
First of all, we live in a social environment. You just mentioned that we live in families, we live in communities, we live in relationship, we're neighbors with each other. And anytime you're sharing a limited resources or you're creating something new or problem solving, you are in a negotiation. And these take place in a formal and informal setting. So when I have something that I need and I need to work through my neighbor to get it, I'm in a negotiation. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's just a contract negotiation. So the quantum skill is so important because it also provides us with personal power and with relationship power. So what I see is that negotiation is the most powerful practice we can do in terms of social engagement. If you think
Mm-hmm.
about all the research that we're finding today and in the practices that we've been studying, we conclude that a lot of negotiation behavior is what we call precognitive, that we don't even know how we're going to show up. Even when we plan a lot, we even undermine ourselves in a negotiation. And
Mm.
sometimes you plan to be cooperative, and then what happens? You start to feel like a victim, and then you start to get coercive, and then, for example, you have completely lost what you wanted to accomplish. So we find that a real skill today as a quantum negotiator is how can I shift from being a victim, for example, to one of showing up in a partnership. And brain scientists are always showing us today that we have so much neuroplasticity in our brains that as we self-evolve, we can unlearn and new learn new things. So even if it's not formal, we can bring not only tricks to negotiation, but let's remember who we are. We are interconnected with our partner on many invisible levels.
Yeah, and I love it that the deep science of it matches the actual action taking,
Yeah,
right? So,
right,
like you mentioned, the neuroplasticity in your brain changes because you are actually making a connection that actually helps our brain,
right.
right?
And this is the feedback loop that's so interesting. It's an invisible feedback loop. It's very powerful.
Right, and it engages you even more to be, not this protective, grab all I want and grab what I think I need, but like you go to great lengths in the book to really talk about the details of how do we both get what we need.
Right.
I sell shoes, you're a manufacturer, please buy my shoes, or
Right.
I'm going to kill it and I'm going to get it, get what I want. And the
Right.
manufacturer is doing the same thing. And then, there's no growth there. There's no
Exactly.
connection there. And I love that quantum negotiation involves, I have teenagers. So negotiation with teenagers, negotiation with family, negotiation at a business partnership, a business negotiation, business, how to think about like what is really the vision basically within you. How are you give this wonderful example. I'm going to ask my next question because it leads into this. On page 75 of your book, Quantum Negotiation, you write about the how of quantum negotiation. Can you explain the 5 steps on the how of quantum negotiation? And I'll get back to that other story with the divorce.
Good. Exactly. We've come up with, after all these years of studying all the various negotiation programs, there's really 5 things to prepare in a negotiation: who I am, what I want, why do I want it, What if I don't reach an agreement? And then how am I going to behave in order to get what I want? So in terms of when we look at preparing for a negotiation, I need to understand these things for myself, and I also need to understand them for my counterpart. And most negotiation training has really focused on what I want and how I'm going to get there. That is tricks, tactics, strategies, and trying to just get somebody to convince them of something that you want. So what we're looking at is the science of motivation comes from understanding what the other party wants, who they are, why do they want it, and what are their alternatives if they don't get an agreement, and how are they behaving. So how can I learn to create a partnership with them rather than to be coercive or act like a victim when I am trying to create a partnership? If you prepare on those dimensions, it gives you so much opportunity to create value with your partner.
I love that. And I think maybe I should send out the top 5 things. I mean, I love because it's like that cycle of mindfulness.
Right. Yeah.
It's really, those 5 things are key in any negotiation.
Right.
Just
any social interaction.
Any social, yeah. Even with myself, like, what is my motivation for whatever, business venture, or, even if it doesn't involve another person, it involves me.
Right.
And, the people I'm of service to. So, that's.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because a lot of what we look at, if you break it down into simplicity, it's how can I have a partnership with myself on all of my human dimensions, including my physical, social, emotional, all of those. Have partnership with yourself, then you can have and build partnership with others. It's fundamental, right?
Exactly. Awesome. I love this stuff.
Me too.
It sounds simple, but can you give me a business situation where quantum negotiation works?
I have 2 examples. One involves what I call a generational conflict or negotiation. And it involves Harvey, who is a baby boomer, and he has a manufacturing company, very experienced, and he's always planned very hard for what he wants, what his targets, his limits are. And he was negotiating now with Kip, who is a millennial, who created his own digital software company. And Harvey's company wants now to acquire or to integrate, merge with this digital company. So you bring in baby boomer manufacturing with Kip, who has a millennial and it lives in the software digital world. So they're coming together. So Kip is been having some trouble with Harvey because Harvey prepares for basically just providing him more money. He thinks Harvey just thinks he's a little upstart, and he got extremely angry and unhinged because he made all kinds of offers, salary offers. He gave them some financial security, some bonuses, a new office, a new desk, and nothing was moving to close this agreement with Kip because Kip was going to stay on the business. So I worked with Harvey. He had to step way back, and I started to ask him, what are some of the things that Kip needs? And Kip, for example, would like to have a happiness committee when they go through the integration process. He was very interested in a very inclusive process on integration. And Harvey has been through many M&As, and he never heard of such a thing, and he was just annoyed by this idea of inclusiveness. So we spent a lot more time looking at Harvey's alternatives. What if he didn't get agreement with Kip? It wasn't a very good agreement. So he needed to find a way to style shift and to explore Kip's world a little bit. So he started to ask Kip a lot more questions about what did he think was important. And Kip really believed that transparency and this kind of open and flexible decision making with the new company and the old company was going to actually create more value and more success. He really thought, Kip thought, that you get better inclusion and quality and satisfaction in your employees if they're part of the process. Mm-hmm. So what happened is that Harvey started to style shift, and he started to understand that maybe there are new ways to do this. And they began to kind of coach each other about what things work from Harvey's old approach to business. And they began to see that teamwork was much more fulfilling. And they actually came together in an agreement, and they created happiness committees when they went through a very successful integration.
Nice.
And then another one is about two sisters or two brothers. This is a family inheritance. Has anybody ever had any family issues? This was an example.
Nobody ever. And yeah, nobody.
Right? This has a happy ending in the end, but two brothers and a sister were about to inherit equal shares of a big family cabin up in Montana. And at the settlement meeting, the middle brother, John, said he wanted to purchase the other party's, Ben and Amy's third, each of their 2/3. He said he'll purchase the whole thing because he's in a better financial position. He also had grown children, and they lived in the Montana area. They'd probably use it more than everybody else. And because he was very busy, he needed to have a lot of flexibility. He would share the cabin with Amy and Ben if they wanted to come. But Amy wanted her third. She would not sell her third. Ben sold his third. And they ended up having a lot of problems over scheduling. And then John said he wanted to renovate the cabin and update it. And Amy said it's not necessary because this is going to cost them a lot more money. So they were in this very severe fight with each other. And Amy and her son actually went up to the cabin and stole some of the Navajo rugs, the pots, the Western art. Her fear was that they were going to just get tossed in the remodel, that John was only interested in modernizing the place. So they started having
people in places of confusion and pain, just like
deep and they said really negative, nasty things to each other, just like they were back in childhood.
Mm.
And Ben, the younger son, is one of my coachees, and he practices quantum negotiation. And he heard about this thievery, and he just thought this estate is never going to get settled. It's going to cost us thousands of dollars, and our family is going to be divided forever. So he called each of them separately, and he found that all they wanted to do was just blame the other party. But he stayed really patient, and he just kept asking them, how were they feeling about the way they were treating each other? Why did they need the cabin so much? And he also got them both to recognize that it really mattered because both of their parents were done or had passed away. They all had good experiences. And eventually, Ben got John and Amy to talk about ways that they could try to stay connected with each other. And since Ben he lived in Costa Rica and was single, he didn't care if they met anywhere in the world. He didn't have to come to the cabin. So he gave up his share to John. And eventually, as they started talking, they brought their adult children into the conversation. And they eventually found that with all of them talking to each other, they could be really flexible with the schedule. They also could be flexible with the financial responsibility. And by bringing the adult children into the conversation, they increased their communication, and they started to realize that they actually wanted to spend some of those holidays with each other as opposed to separate families. So Ben found that this was such a great example to share with us about how feelings and that human need to be recognized and connected brought a whole new level of creativity and energy from this family experience. And he is just blessed by everything has gone so well.
You mentioned the word creativity, and I think that that's usually not mentioned with negotiation, except to creatively conquer,
Right.
There's ways to conquer your opponent and not negotiate with a partner. Because truly, it's a partnership, any negotiation.
Right.
It's a partnership, family, work, whatever it is. So I love both of those examples because each one just broadened the situation. If you would have kept it to, I get what I want, and you have to figure out your half.
Right.
There's no broadening. There's no, celebration, if you will, in the business or in the personal.
Right. So I agree.
I love that. Um, One more thing. We are like at 20 minutes. I can't even believe it because I've been like so in love with this whole thing. In your book, you give an example of a woman named Alex walking through a tough divorce, who is a lawyer, by the way, and she's walking through a divorce. So I love this example because it represented a heated negotiation. Because a lot of times, if you're related, and especially in a divorce situation, a really sticky situation, it's hard. But well, we usually think that we need to press harder and take all, and we need to press harder and take all we can to overpower someone to
Right.
win negotiation. Can you explain how quantum negotiation helped Alex accomplish her real goal in a balanced, creative, clear way?
And this is where the mindfulness comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So she and I worked a lot on, first of all, being mindful of the litigious rights-based approach to negotiation has its place to be adversarial, and your rights need to be more protected versus the other. But what she wanted to do was use a more mutual gains or a relationship-based negotiation approach, which is, this is about a partnership of two parents who really love their child. So she had to be mindful, first of all, that her thinking had to change from adversarial rights-based to a more abundance and growth and partnership model. That was the first thing. We worked on her thinking dimension. Then we worked on her feeling dimension, because this hijacked her nervous system. She had so much fear and trauma and felt victimized by this that we spent a lot of time just identifying what her emotions were, how she could nourish her physical body and get the rest that she needed. Whenever she would go to talk to him, it wouldn't be when she was stressed or really tired. And then we talked a lot about her spiritual belief in goodness, that she believes in goodness and opportunity, and she wanted to behave in a collaborative way with her ex-husband. So she really thought a lot about these dimensions, mindful of what kind of behavior she was going to use. So she style shifted from being a litigious adversarial partner to a cooperative and an empathetic partner. So once she found that this was so meaningful to her, she would actually practice being more cooperative and much more empathetic to what he would say. And she would have to do a lot of debriefing because it took a lot of energy to stay calm. But she noticed by playing the victim and being powerless, it would just hijack her entire nervous system, and her whole family system would be just a mess. So she actually discovered a really powerful leadership capacity within herself she didn't even know that she had. So this is what's so rewarding for me as a coach. And I know for you, what is it, Brianna, that is so rewarding when you see people move with their mindfulness from powerlessness to having great personal and relationship power?
I love the example of Alex because they both have the same goal, but they couldn't get there, and usually in most negotiations, you both have the same goal. It's just so clouded by anger and expectation and resentment and fear. And so that you don't have clarity, They were both very clear that they wanted the best for their daughter, but they were so wrapped up into, you're not gonna, and this. And how I love the best thing I love in working with people is, oh my gosh, the clarity is right there.
Right.
We, like you mentioned, you just have to breathe and get centered, and it'll come to you. But you have to take some steps in order to be able to breathe, and there's some action that you have to take. But it's simple, and having a coach, like yourself and myself, having a coach that walks you through it, because you have to do it by yourself. These are new skills that you are walking through, and that you have to, you have to partner with somebody. Like, come on, walk through this with me. And that's another like quantum negotiation, really, like with yourself. Like, am I going to try to do this one more time by myself? Am I going to try to forge with just the amount of, and not to say, this woman, Alex, was a lawyer already. She already knew the whole litigious game.
Right.
She really needed you as a partner to walk her through it because she needed a new idea. And she
Right.
had that idea already within her, which is what
Exactly.
I love. Like the people we work with already are smart, already have the idea within them. They just need some coaching to kind of go, here's how to do this idea. Here's how to, and just some pulling back, because we get so tight and wrapped up into, I know that's not a word, but it's, that we miss opportunities.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's what I
Tragic
love.
to miss those opportunities. Right.
Right. That's what I love about coaching. So, oh my gosh, this was really quick. This was so much fun.
I love discussing this with you and want to help anyone who is going through something and just needs just someone to listen and to press against and even to practice. How do you change? And we talk a lot about style shifting. Style shifting is difficult, but it's not impossible.
Right. And I love your approach. I mean, you have global management experience. I mean, Karen has literally taught, I don't know, every continent. I mean, all
Not
around the world.
Right.
Different, yeah, missed Antarctica, darn. But different cultures and different communication and negotiating, that she has actual real-time experience with that. And, you know, I would suggest her highly, you know, as a coach and for your team, especially,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
individually, but as a team, she's amazing to get in there and work with your team on, you know, very specific individuals being able to come together. And I'm so grateful for you. I really am. This has been just like a dream for me to talk with you this way. You know, deep down, you know, I'm a nerd, and I love, but I love it when the quantum and that language, the science meets the practical of mindfulness, the practicality of mindfulness. I don't look at mindfulness as airy. You know, you have real, you and I both have real life practical clarity that we both received through mindfulness. So
Exactly. Right.
thank you so much for being here today, and I so appreciate you. And subscribe to my website.
Yes.
Will be a beautifully balanced insider, and I do mean that pun. So find a beautifully balanced insider. You can find out more information about Karen Walch at, what's your website?
Clairvoyant Leadership. So it's C as in Claire, B-leadership.com.
And I'll have a link to her website it'll be already in the newsletter. But if you are not a part of my newsletter, if you're not a part, join, because I'm going to have more amazing interviews about play and about art and about, you know, I'm actually going to interview one of my doctors who I work with. So just subscribe today, be a beautifully balanced insider, and get all this and more today. And again, I know I've said this a couple of times, but thank you for bringing your expertise and your knowledge and your amazing spirit. So
thank you, Brianna.
Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.